Imagine a 300 million year old, like, totally alien-looking monster fossil.
Right, which is already hard to picture.
Exactly. But imagine it buried in the exact same muddy soil where, eons later, a guy would accidentally invent the modern backyard barbecue by basically cutting a marine buoy in half.
Yeah, you probably don't think about deep geological time or like industrial maritime equipment when you're out flipping a burger on a Saturday afternoon.
No, of course not. You just do it. It's just a thing we do.
But we rarely stop to consider the actual mechanics of our modern routines. The items we interact with every single day, they feel entirely detached from their historical origins.
Well, today we are looking squarely at you, the curious learner, to help bridge that gap. So as the United States rapidly approaches its semi-quincentennial,
Which is a fun word for the big 250th anniversary.
right, the big 250, we have been digging through a massive stack of articles from the Chicago Tribune's Illinois 250 series. And our mission for this deep dive is to sort of unpack how a series of hyper-local ideas, seemingly random accidents, and these really intense cultural moments from the state of Illinois just rippled out.
Yeah, rippled out to shape the DNA of the entire nation. And frankly, the whole world.
Totally. And the scope of the sources here is just vast.
It really is. I mean, we are looking at architectural breakthroughs, the mechanization of the American diet, the origins of beloved sports franchises, and, like you mentioned, the literal bedrock of the Midwest.
Yeah, it's basically an exercise in tracing these invisible threads of American innovation.
Exactly.
So let's just jump right into the crucible. Because to understand how this one state impacted global culture, we have to start at the epicenter, which is Chicago.
Right.
And specifically the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition. Because I look at this event and the only analogy that really makes sense to me is that the 1893 World's Fair was basically the Silicon Valley of its day.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. It was this concentrated pressure cooker of startup energy.
Yeah.
All these world-changing concepts were launched simultaneously. But honestly, what I struggle to wrap my head around is the timeline.
The timeline is wild.
Because the Great Chicago Fire was in 1871.
Yeah.
That's a 22-year turnaround. From a smoldering pile of ashes to hosting this gleaming state-of-the-art international exposition, like, how does that even happen?
Well, that turnaround wasn't just some, miracle of civic pride. It was driven by raw, unadulterated ambition and the necessity of capital.
Right. Money talks.
Exactly. When a massive portion of your urban core is just wiped off the map, you are left with a blank canvas. The city leaders, they knew that to attract investment back to the region, they couldn't just rebuild what was lost.
You couldn't just do the status quo.
No, they had to build the future.
Right.
So they created this environment that magnetically attracted the most eccentric, brilliant engineers and inventors of the entire era.
Which brings us to Whitcomb L. Judson.
Yes.
So he was this Chicago-born inventor who shows up to this fair to debut a patent for something he called the, quote, class blocker or unlocker for shoes.
Which is just a terrible name for marketing.
Oh, it's so bad. Class blocker. But beyond that, I mean, why was this even necessary? People had laces, they had buttons, they worked fine, didn't they?
Well, did they work fine, though? I mean, think about Victorian fashion. High button boots were the standard, right?
Sure.
And fastening them was incredibly tedious. You needed a specialized tool, a literal button hook, just to get dressed in the morning.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that involved.
Yeah, so Judson saw a mechanical inefficiency. His class blocker used a sliding guide to manually engage a series of hooks and eyes.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't the interlocking teeth we know today, like on a normal zipper?
Not quite yet. It was pretty clunky, and it tended to just pop open, honestly. But it introduced the mechanical principle of continuous closure.
Ah.
And that primitive class blocker eventually evolved into the interlocking metal teeth of the modern zipper.
That's amazing.
Right. And if you remove that one Midwestern debut, I mean, the global garment, luggage, and aerospace industries look completely different today.
And it wasn't just industrial mechanics debuting there, right? Like
Oh.
the first Ferris wheel was there, Cracker Jack, Wrigley's Gum, Pabst Blue Ribbon beer, all launched at this one fair.
It's staggering.
But let's look at the logistics of an event this massive. We're talking millions of visitors descending on the city. And according to the Tribune lore, Bertha Palmer, she was the president of the fair's board of lady managers, she puts in a request to the chef at the Palmer House Hotel.
Right. And it wasn't just, hey, bake something nice.
No, she doesn't ask for a new flavor. She literally asks for a structural solution to a food problem.
Yeah, she essentially commissioned the invention of the premium grab-and-go snack.
Which is wild to think about in 1893.
Totally. You have Millions of attendees walking these massive pavilions. They don't have the time or the physical space for a sit-down plated dessert. So Palmer knew they needed something calorie-dense, portable, and structurally sound enough to be boxed up without, turning into a crumbly mess.
And so the Palmer House chef delivers the brownie.
The brownie.
It's just brilliant. It wasn't just culinary experimentation. It was an engineered solution to crowd logistics.
Exactly. And that same spirit of scale and ambition, it physically reshaped the skyline, too. Chicago became this ultimate playground for titans of architecture, guys like Frank Lloyd Wright and Louis Sullivan.
Right, they were basically inventing the modern city. But there is one detail in these sources, specifically about the 1930 Chicago Board of Trade building, that just stopped me in my tracks.
Oh, I know what you're going to say. You're talking about the Statue of Ceres.
Yes, so it's this massive 45-story Art Deco monolith of a building, right? And at the very top, they place this 30-foot statue of Ceres, the Roman goddess of agriculture.
Which makes total sense for a commodities trading hub.
Oh, absolutely. But her creators didn't give her a face. She is completely featureless, just a blank face looking out over the city.
And the hubris behind that decision is just peak Chicago.
Right. Why did they do that?
Well, the designers reportedly assumed that no other building in the city would ever be built tall enough for anyone to get up there and look the statue in the eye.
That is amazing.
They honestly believed they had reached the absolute untouchable zenith of vertical engineering.
We have conquered the sky. No one will ever see her face.
Exactly.
But wait, Chicago is famously built on a swamp, right? The Great Lakes region isn't exactly solid bedrock right at the surface. So how do you even anchor a 45-story skyscraper in mud so confidently that you think you've, conquered the sky forever?
And that's the invisible innovation right there. Before they could build up, Chicago engineers had to completely revolutionize building down.
What do you mean?
They pioneered the use of deep caisson foundations, which is essentially sinking these massive hollow cylinders deep down through the muck and filling them with concrete until they hit hardpan or bedrock.
Oh, wow. So they just bypassed the swamp entirely.
Yeah, they conquered the geology before they ever conquered the skyline.
That is so cool. And speaking of conquering, let's pivot to a totally different kind of dominance. Because the Tribune pieces highlight Chicago's reign as the candy capital of the world.
Oh, yes. The sugar capital.
And there is a statistic from a 1941 Works Progress Administration pamphlet that absolutely broke my brain. So they calculated that if you took all the candy manufactured in Chicago in a single year, right,
Okay.
packed it all into 1-pound boxes, and laid them out to pave a 55-foot wide street.
That's a wide street.
That street of candy would stretch for 1,026 miles.
It's an almost incomprehensible volume of sugar.
It's an entire interstate highway made of nougat. We're talking Snickers, Tootsie Rolls, Baby Ruths, Marshall Fields, Frango Mints. But I have to ask, why Chicago? Like, why didn't New York or Boston corner the market on candy bars?
Well, it comes down to a perfect storm of geography and infrastructure. You see, Chicago was the ultimate railroad hub.
Right. Everything flowed through there.
Exactly. You have the agricultural output of the entire Midwest flowing directly into the city. So that's beet sugar, dairy for the milk chocolate, and most importantly, corn for corn syrup.
Ah, okay. The raw ingredients are just pouring in.
Right. Combine that limitless supply of raw, cheap calories with a massive immigrant workforce and centralized rail distribution, and Chicago was just uniquely positioned to mass produce and distribute confectionery cheaper and faster than anywhere else on Earth.
So they didn't just invent the snacks, they industrialized the human sweet tooth.
They really did.
And that early dominance wasn't limited to industry either. Even in sports, the sheer competitive output was staggering. Like back in 1876, the Chicago White Stockings, who, by the way, would eventually become the Cubs.
Right, the beloved Cubs.
They clinched the inaugural National League pennant. And they ended that season with a 52-14 record.
Which is a winning percentage that modern baseball teams literally can't even fathom. It was the result of a city that approached everything, even recreation, with this ruthless drive for optimization.
And professionalization, yeah.
Completely.
So if Chicago was the engine of this massive, roaring locomotive of innovation, what happens when that engine produces, too much steam? Because as we move into the mid-20th century in these articles, we see this incredible demographic shift.
Yeah, the pressure valve opens, and all that energy spills over into the suburbs.
Right.
Post-World War II, you have this explosion of the middle class moving out of the urban core. And when they do, they take that Midwestern pragmatism with them and they fundamentally reshape the modern American concept of domestic leisure.
Which brings us back to the guy cutting a buoy in half.
Yes, George A. Stephen.
Over in Mount Prospect, Illinois. He is frustrated because he ruined a steak on an outdoor flat brick fireplace.
Because a flat brick fireplace leaves your food entirely at the mercy of the wind and the elements.
Yeah, the heat is incredibly uneven. We've all had those terrible burn on the outside, raw on the inside burgers.
Exactly. So Stephen, who works at Weber Brothers Metalworks, he looks at these metal half-spheres they are welding together to make marine buoys.
Buoys. For the water.
Right. He takes one, punches some holes in the bottom for air, adds some legs, and uses another half-sphere as a lid. And just like that, the iconic UFO-shaped Weber kettle grill is born.
Yeah, it's just wild. But mechanically speaking, what does that dome actually do? I mean, people had been cooking meat over open flames for millennia.
Well, the dome changes the thermodynamics of backyard cooking.
Oh, okay, how so?
An open flame is just direct radiant heat, right?
Oh.
Burns the outside of the meat before the inside cooks. But by adding the lid and the bottom vents, Stephen essentially created a portable convection oven. Yeah, the air circulates, the heat distributes evenly, and it allows for indirect cooking and smoking. He took industrial maritime materials and engineered the exact thermodynamic conditions needed for suburban leisure.
It's just brilliant cross-pollination.
Yeah.
And you see that exact same drive to engineer convenience over in Des Plaines in 1955.
Yes.
The site of the very first McDonald's franchise opened by Ray Kroc's. I mean, this is the launch pad for a business that would literally conquer the globe and standardize the human diet.
Yeah.
And you'd assume the location was chosen through, like, rigorous demographic studies or traffic flow analysis, right?
Far from it.
Seriously.
Yeah, the primary driver for that specific location was Ray Kroc's own personal friction. He chose that lot simply because it was a short 7-minute drive from his house, and it was walking distance to the commuter train.
Wait, are you kidding me? The global fast food empire was birthed on that specific corner just so the boss wouldn't have a bad commute.
Exactly. That's literally why it's there.
Or that is hilarious.
But think about the profound macro-societal shift that reveals, right? Kroc was optimizing for the automobile and the elimination of friction. The suburbs were being built around the windshield, not the pedestrian.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, Kroc was simply embodying the exact consumer desire, which is speed, convenience, and car-centric access that his restaurant was about to capitalize on.
Wow. And that obsession with efficiency, it extended right into our pantries, too. Because during the Great Depression, over in River Forest, Illinois, we get the birth of the Twinkie.
The legendary Twinkie.
So you have a plant manager at the Continental Baking Company, this guy named James Dewar, and he wants to create a cheap 2-for-a-nickel snack.
And again, just like the grill, he looks at unused capacity. The bakery had all these specialized pans for making strawberry shortcakes.
But strawberry season is incredibly short.
Exactly. For most of the year, those pans were just sitting idle, representing wasted capital.
Oh.
So Dewar decides to use that idle machinery to inject banana cream, and then later vanilla cream, into a basic sponge cake.
Wait, it was originally banana cream.
Yeah. Banana was the original flavor before bananas got rationed during World War II.
Oh, wow. I had no idea. And he names it after seeing a billboard for twinkle toe shoes.
Right. It's just the ultimate exercise in leveraging what you already have sitting around.
Yeah. And even childhood play got engineered for spatial efficiency in the Chicago suburbs. Over in Evanston, Charles Peugeot invented Tinker Toys. And a bit later, we see the Jungle Gym emerge from this area, too.
And these weren't just random toys, either. They represented a massive philosophical shift in child development.
How so?
Well, before this, you basically just had basic wooden blocks, right?
Right.
But Tinker Toys and Jungle Gyms introduced modular, open-ended spatial construction. They were designed to teach children the geometry of building.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, they were basically preparing a generation of suburban kids to think like the architects and engineers who built the city next door.
That is such a cool connection. So we've seen the city build skyscrapers and the suburbs reinvent dinner and playtime. But let's zoom out even further. Because these Tribune articles show that the broader state of Illinois proves world-class breakthroughs aren't just an urban phenomenon.
No, the vast geography of the state has been a massive incubator in its own right.
Take the Chicago Bears. Despite the name, they didn't start in Chicago. They started in Decatur, Illinois back in 1920 as the Decatur Staleys under George Ellis.
Right.
And if you want to understand their legacy, You really just have to look at the 1940 NFL championship game against the Washington Redskins, because the Bears won that game 73-0.
Which remains the most lopsided championship game in NFL history.
But how does a professional championship game end 73-0? Like, did the other team just forget the rules? Did they not show up?
Well, they basically didn't show up for what the Bears were doing. The Bears unleashed a tactical revolution, which was the T formation.
Okay, what is that?
Prior to this, football was largely a game of brute force rugby scrums. You just snapped the ball and ran straight into the line.
Just big guys pushing big guys.
Exactly. But the Bears, using the T formation, they put the quarterback behind the center and used players in motion before the snap.
Oh, wow.
It shifted the sport from a game of pure mass to a game of geometry, deception, and speed. I mean, the Redskins literally didn't know who had the ball until the Bears were already in the end zone.
It's that Midwestern engineering applied directly to a football field.
It really is.
And we see that same localized ingenuity pop up down in Joliet in 1940 with the very first Dairy Queen.
Opened by Sherwood Noble.
Right. And he named it that simply because he felt the cow was the queen of the dairy industry.
Which is very literal.
Yeah.
But much like the candy industry in Chicago, Dairy Queen thrived because it sat right at the intersection of agricultural abundance, limitless dairy from the surrounding farmland, and a new mechanical innovation.
Which was
the soft serve freezer. It mechanically pumped air into the ice cream to change its structural mechanics, making it softer and cheaper to produce.
Oh, so it's all about changing the mechanics of the food itself. From the complex engineering of Pullman sleeping train cars to the material science of the iconic red plastic Solo cup, which was invented down in Urbana, by the way, the state just kept churning out things that define American culture.
Absolutely.
But okay, we have to address the absolute weirdest contribution in this entire stack of Tribune articles.
Yeah.
We are going to Mason Creek, Illinois, to uncover something that is 300 million years old.
Ah, the Tully monster.
Yes. Discovered in 1955 by an amateur paleontologist named Francis Tully. This is a fossil of a creature so bizarre, it basically defies classification.
Yeah, scientists argued over what it even was for decades.
The sources describe it as having a cigar-shaped body, eyes sticking out on the ends of a rigid bar, and a single triangular tail fin. Like, it's so wildly unique, it's the official state fossil.
Yeah.
But I have a question about the mechanics of this. Why was this weird, soft-bodied alien thing perfectly preserved in Illinois, of all places?
It comes down to the unique geology of Mason Creek. So 300 million years ago, this area was a muddy tropical estuary.
Tropical in Illinois.
Yeah, long before the ice ages. And when these bizarre creatures died, they were rapidly buried in the silt. The specific chemical composition of the mud caused ironstone concretions, which are essentially hard rock nodules, to form around the bodies before they could decay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, perfectly casting their soft tissues for eons.
So, as our resident expert dot connector, I have to ask you something. We just traversed from Ray Kroc optimizing his commute in the 1950s to a 300-million-year-old sea creature with stalk eyes preserved in an iron nodule. How does finding something as ancient and alien as the Tully monster shift our perspective on the state's historical timeline?
I think it forces a profound recalibration of what we even consider history. When we talk about the semi-quincentennial 250 years of the United States, we are talking about a microscopic blip in geological time.
Right, it's nothing.
Finding the Tully monster in the exact same soil where we later drove caissons for skyscrapers, laid massive rail networks for candy distribution, and engineered the modern barbecue grill. It reminds us that the land itself has a memory.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Humanity is just the most recent, frantic layer of innovation to happen on this specific patch of the Earth.
Wow. That puts the invention of the Twinkie into some serious existential perspective.
It does, but I think it also elevates our everyday actions. The history of this place isn't just a list of dates in a textbook. It's a continuous, unbroken chain of problem solving. From ancient marine life adapting to a delta, to a woman figuring out how to feed millions at a World's Fair, to a guy repurposing a buoy so he wouldn't burn his dinner.
So, synthesizing all of this. For you listening, tomorrow morning when you zip up your jacket to brave the cold, or later when you grab a burger at a drive-thru, or when you are standing around a domed grill in your backyard, just realize that the very mechanics of how you live have been fundamentally engineered by the ingenuity of this one state.
Yeah.
The culture we actually share isn't built on massive historical treaties. It's built on localized, everyday friction being solved by everyday people.
And that cycle of solving friction, it hasn't stopped. The drive to engineer a better, faster, or more convenient way of living is happening in real time all around us.
Which leaves us with a truly exciting thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. Look around your house, your commute, your neighborhood. What seemingly mundane, hyper-local invention being tinkered with in a garage or a small-town workshop today is going to become a globally ubiquitous phenomenon by the time America celebrates its 300th anniversary.
It's a wild thought. The next zipper or the next revolutionary leap in how we cook is probably sitting right in front of us, looking completely ordinary.
And the person inventing it probably has no idea what they've just unleashed.
Probably not.
Keep your eyes open. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.